This week's parasha, Vayikra, Sefer Vayikra. We're starting the third book of the Torah, Baruch Hashem, and it starts off with that famous word Vayikra, and Hashem calls out to Moshe Rabbeinu. And we've spoken so much in the past that this language of calling out of Vayikra is a language of love, of chiba. Hashem really desires to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then we have the famous idea of the small Aleph. Why is the word Vayikra written with a small Aleph? So we know the classic answer that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted Hashem to say Vayikra, which means it happened to be. He didn't want to show how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loved him so much. But so Hashem said, listen, no, I'm writing Vayikra, but I'm going to make the Aleph small to show how much of an anav, to show how humble you are. That's the simple pshat to why we have a small Aleph in the word Vayikra. In the past years, we've given many other divrei Torah. This year, I want to turn to the approach of the Megillah Mukot in his 30th, Ofen Lamed, his 30th approach to why there's a small Aleph in Vayikra. So while most of the approaches that we said in the past focus on Moshe Rabbeinu and the great level of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe making himself smaller, maktin himself, he's an anab, he's humble, or we spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu maybe missing the last gate of the Sha'ar Nun, of the 50 gates of Binah, of wisdom. Moshe Rabbeinu only got to 49, and that small Aleph symbolizes that he didn't get to that last one, or he only got 1/1000th. Aleph is like the language of Aleph, and different approaches regarding Moshe Rabbeinu. We also said that the word Vayikar, if you get rid of the Aleph, you see the word Yakar. But Yakar is very dear. And in the past we spoke about the relationship of the word Yakar to Tefillin, to Rabbi Akiva. But on the simple level, says the Megillah Mukot, Aval Gabei Moshe, Vayikar el Moshe, Shekavod Gadol Nitkabed Moshe Bekriya B'dibur Zeh. It was Yakar, it was dear, it was wonderful, it was splendid for Moshe Rabbeinu that Hashem wants to speak to him, meaning the fact that Hashem wants to talk to you, that is Yakar. So also the idea of the Aleph being smaller is so we don't only read it as Vayikra, that Hashem is calling out, and Hashem wants the dialogue, wants the communication, but in this communication, in this Vayikra, there's a Yakar to Moshe Rabbeinu. This is very dear and very special and a great kavod for Moshe Rabbeinu that Hashem wants to speak out to him. Okay, but then says the Megillah Mukot, Lachen Aleph Zeira, why? And this is why the Aleph is small, Shehu Tzrach HaKadosh Baruch Hu Laktin et Atzmo. Vayired Hashem, and meaning Hashem had to make himself smaller to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. Vayired Hashem. Hashem comes down to Moshe Rabbeinu. So basically what he's saying is that, we always talk about Moshe making himself smaller. Says the Megillah Mukot, you know what the greatness is over here? That Hashem is making himself smaller. Hashem is maktin himself, lowers himself. Vayered Hashem. Hashem goes down to be with Moshe Rabbeinu. That's the idea of the small Aleph. That Aleph we said in the past, Aleph relates to Alufo Shel Olam, the great one, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem is making himself smaller, a kind of tzimtzum, a kind of contraction. Come down to Moshe Rabbeinu. In my Megillah Mukot, my fancy one, there's a perush called Aleph Binah. So he quotes a midrash Psikta. Says the midrash. The Midrash asked the questions, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, who came down to who? Did Hashem come down to the Jewish people at Matan Torah? Or did we go up to Hashem? Like, what's going on over there? So explains Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi that it was Hashem that brought himself down. Why? Because the Pasuk says, Vayered Hashem al Har Sinai. Hashem came down to Har Sinai. And then he continues by quoting another midrash, Midrash Tanchuma, Amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachman, B'sha'ah shebara HaKadosh Baruch Hu et ha'olam. When Hashem created the world, nit'ava sheyeh lo dira b'tachtonim. Hashem wanted a dira, a dwelling place down below. It's the famous midrash of the dira b'tachtonim. Hashem wants to be with us in our world down below. K'mo sheyesh b'elyonim. Just like there's a holiness up above the elyonim, Hashem has a dwelling place above. He wants a dwelling place down below as well. Barata Adam, v'tziva oto. And Hashem created man. He commanded him to do the mitzvot, do the things. Amar le HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kach hayiti mitaveh sheyeh li dira b'tachtonim, k'mo sheyesh li ba'elyonim. And basically he skips a little bit of the midrash, but we're going to have the initial sin of Adam Rishon, and then the other sins of in the times of the Mabul, in the times of the Palaga, of the Tower of Babel. Basically, we sinned along the way. And when we sinned, Hashem tells Adam, I gave you one commandment that you didn't keep it. And then Hashem took a shechina up and went all the way up. And then the Midrash speaks about it, goes all the way up, and then how it's going to come down. So then the Midrash goes on, we're skipping a little bit. Amad Moshe v'horida la'aretz. And Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that brought the shechina down. Shneimar, Vayered Hashem al Sinai. Uchtiv bati leganiach oti kala imatai keshukam mishkan. And he says right now in our parashiyot, the closings of Shemot since Truma, and now in Vayikra, with this Vayikar right now, this Aleph Zeira, as the Megillah Mukot is saying, when Hashem comes down now to speak to Moshe Rabbeinu, we completed the Mishkan at the end of Shemot, and now we're ready to enter it and begin talking about the service. The whole book of Vayikra is going to be about the Mishkan and the Korbanot, the Levi'im, the Kohanim. So now with this Vayikra, that Hashem is now calling out to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem is now coming down to dwell, bring the Shekhinah into this world. That's the Aleph Zeira. The Aleph Zeira is a hint to Hashem making himself smaller to come down into our world, because he really desired so much that that Dira B'Tachtonim, and that was the Zechut of Moshe Rabbeinu. Says this Midrash, Moshe was the one that was able to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu down. Shabbat Shalom.